Ég gleymdi einu, býttu aðeins. Framboðsfrestur til varaformanns embættis til klukkan Svanborg 14:15? Nei, ekki rétt. 13:15, takk, kosningin helst 14:15. Takk fyrir aðstofuna. Og til málefnaráðs. Höfum það á hreinu. Herri, þá gjör svo vel Aðalsteinn.
Góðan dag, ég segi eins og Þorgerður, mikið þið heillandi. Ég rauk út af málefnafundi í gær til að fara á flugvöll og sækja gestin okkar, Verhofstadt. Og mér tókst að vera tæpa 3 klukkutíma að keyra frá Keflavík til Reykjavíkur. Með því að fara aðeins lengri leiðina vegna þess að ég vildi eiga tíma með honum í bílnum til þess að spjalla málin. Og svona gríðarlega skemmtilegt og áhugavert vegna þess að við erum með algjöran eldhuga sem mættir til þess að tala við okkur. Og ekki bara eldhuga í Evrópumálum, þar sem við höfum náttúrulega fylgst með honum í áratugi og halda sína eldræður á Evrópuþinginu, þar sem hann hefur verið leiðtogi, heldur ekki síður eldhugi frjálslyndra. Hann var 29 ára gamall þessi maður þegar hann var formaður síns stjórnmálaflokks. Hann var 31 árs þegar hann komin í ríkisstjórn sem fjármálaráðherra. Þegar maður sagði reyndar, þegar við vorum að spjalla við hann við Daði Már í gær, að það hefði verið auðvelt starf, hann hefði bara þurft að kunna segja 1 orð sem var nei. Nákvæmlega. Og það er spurning hvernig maður segir þetta. Það skiptir miklu máli. Hér maður sem hefur skrifað 10 bækur alþjóðleg málefni og hann satt hérna frammi áðan með tölvunum sína, kannski sumir eitthvað sá hann, þar sem hann skrifað 11. bókina og bók sem ég býð eftir að spenntur eftir að lesa, kemur reynda fyrst út á hollensku og fjallar hin uppreisnargjarna borgara, þar sem hún að ræða hvernig við, frjálslyndir, eigum að spyrna tilbaka í þeirri heimsmynd sem við horfum upp á núna. Og titillinn á innleggi hans The Age of New Empires, right? Og hann mun tala sem sagt, já, ég ætla bara að gefa honum tíma til að tala það sem hann ætlar að tala En hér maður, svo náum við að setja sniður og taka nokkrar spurningar hérna þegar að máli hans lokið. Og svo hann sjálfsögðu líka forseti Alþjóða Evrópuhreyfingarinnar og getur gefið okkur góð ráð það hvernig við tökum baráttuna áfram þannig að við verðum aðilar Evrópusambandinu eins og sagði stjórnmálaálitinu sem allra fyrst. Guy, you are here among friends, among liberals and people that are very enthusiastic about joining the European Union. And I'll give you the floor and then we'll have some time to talk afterwards. Please.
Thank you. First of all, I didn't understand nothing about the introduction, so I didn't know what exactly has been said. I hope only positive things. And first of all, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I want to congratulate the leader for the re-election as leader. 98%, not bad. I never got more than 70. I have to tell you. Percent in the different contests for leadership, and yeah, I know when you are the leader and you are the outcoming leader and the new leader, you have a little bit to be pushed to be leader, but there will become a day that you will miss it to be leader, because a leadership in politics, ladies and gentlemen, is absolutely crucial. It's not only a party without a strong leadership, and a charismatic leadership is in fact nothing. You need that leadership, and I think that you bring that leadership to this beautiful party here in Iceland. Congratulations for that. So, in fact, it's a very easy task that I have, because you're all convinced about the necessity to come in the European Union. Why I'm invited? One of the last possibilities I got during the Brexit, because I negotiated Brexit for the European Parliament, I was invited just before the start of the referendum. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before in London. For a conference, all with the CEOs and investment bankers. I don't know what type of guys were present in the room. And the item was together with Lord Hague, the former leader of the Tory party. And the question there was, yes, Brexit, no Brexit. And I said to all these people in the room, why you are discussing Brexit? You are already outside of the European Union. Because at that time, Britain was not part of Schengen. Britain was not part of the euro. Britain was not part of a number of other policies of the European Union. And when I'm looking back to what happened in the UK, it's maybe a good lesson for us as liberals here in Iceland, but also in the rest of Europe, how not to do it, a referendum. Because in Britain, they did a referendum at the initiative, you know, of David Cameron, one of his big mistakes in his political career. And he started that campaign, that referendum campaign, by saying, yeah, we are in favor to join, to continue to be, because they were in the European Union, but we are very critical. We are against the euro, we are against Schengen, we are against this, we are against that. And they lost. And they asked themselves, how is it possible? Because before the referendum started, there was, I think, a majority of 60% in favor to stay in the European Union. And that was the moment that Cameron said, oh, it's a good moment now to hold this referendum, because in the opinion poll, 60% is in favor. So it will be, the outcome will be a yes. And then he started the campaign half-heartedly, a half-hearted campaign, where he criticized and said, no, we don't like this, we don't like that, we want to change this, we want to change that. And so then people are asked, what do you think about the European Union? Most people say then, yeah, you are critical for the European Union, you don't want to be in the euro, you don't want... The lesson to take from that experiment, I would say, that tragedy, in fact, that Brexit is today, an unfolding tragedy, is if you go to a referendum, then you have to defend the European Union and European idea as a project, as a hope for the future, in its integrality, and not starting to pick and choose, as the British have done for more than many decades. It's a lesson to take. That when in 2026 or 2027 there will be such a referendum here in Ireland, defend with all your heart and all your passion the whole idea, the culture behind it, the political reality behind it, and what I would say, the geopolitical necessity to have a strong Europe in the world of tomorrow. And that is my second message that I want to give you today. The reason why Europe is needed is in fact the fact that we live in a completely different world order than 10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago. This world order of today is a brutal world order, a competition not between nation states. It's not a peaceful coexistence between 200 nation states, the world of today. It's a brutal competition between a number of big empires, continental organizations, who want to steer not only their continent, but want to lead the whole world. Not only politically, but also economically, technologically, military, not only on Earth, also in space today and tomorrow. That is the world of today. It's not longer a peaceful coexistence between 200 nations, but a brutal competition between empires. And we know these empires. China, for example. China is not a nation. There are hundreds of nations in China. It's a civilization. It's Han civilization. With, on top of that, a communist party, as we all know. And India, for example, that's also, there are 200 nations, I think, in India. There are 20 languages that are spoken in India. There are 4 big religions that are practiced in India. And it's the biggest democracy for the moment in the world. And in fact, it's a shame and a failure of the West, the democratic West, that India is now joining, in fact, an alliance with autocrats, with Russia and with China in the BRICS. But it's an empire, or it's in any way a big power in the coming. And the US is an empire, as we know. now with a leadership that certainly is not very, how to say, liberal, or certainly not liberal Democrat with huge hesitations today. And maybe Brazil tomorrow will be one of the key players. Maybe one of other Arab state, Turkey will be a key player. Iran will be a key player. It's also an autocracy. And you have to ask yourselves, yeah, we as Europeans, with all our different nations, little nations, even Germany is little compared to the world order of today. Yeah, what is the future of this continent in such a world? In a world where you see what is happening today, where there is also a fight of democracy between autocracy, as we see unfolding every day before us. What needs to be done in Europe? Can Europe survive? Or needs we to continue under the umbrella, what we are for the moment, certainly Europe, of our American friends, between brackets, because for the moment it's quite difficult with our friends. And my point is, the world tomorrow will be a world in which sovereignty will be important, but at least also security will be important. Both will be important. And security, we will only get it in this world of tomorrow under the umbrella of a big, what I call at least a continental organization. Otherwise, you don't have it. And there are already elements, proofs of that. Take, for example, Finland and Sweden. If I was here on this Congress 5 years ago and I would have said, look, Sweden and Finland will join NATO, you would have said, oh, the guy has already drunk too much beer or too much alcohol at midday before this conference. Nobody believed that for historical reasons, for ideological reasons that the Swedes would enter NATO or that Finland would enter a military alliance. They were very, very anxious for a military alliance because they were still waiting for the help that we promised before the Second World War when they were invaded by the Russians. They are still waiting for that help at this moment. So they were very anxious for it. And nevertheless, what we have seen is that after the entry of Russia in Ukraine, these two countries immediately said, okay, we won't be in a military organization, in a security organization, the fastest as possible for our security. Because we don't take the risk anymore to be outside. And the same will happen with Ukraine. The same will happen with Georgia later. The same will happen with Moldavia. Even Armenia, what is a traditional ally of Russia, is today saying, wait a little moment. We are ready to become member of the European Union. The fastest as possible. So we see that in the future, security will be paramount in this new world order, because it is a world order, what we see, of power, not longer of values. For us liberals, it's a difficult thing, because we are based on ideas, on values, on ideology, on principles, and what we see is it's a world of power. It's not that the values are counting. If you are powerful, then you are counting in this new world order. And the only way to defend ourselves is to create, in fact, a continental organization on the European level that defend these values, that defend this principles idea. So I call it an empire of the good. We have enough empires of the bad, I would say, today. We need an empire, between brackets, of the good, who is defending this multilateral order worldwide, liberal democracy worldwide, because liberal democracy is not winning on the world level for the moment. Certainly not if we see that a number of big democracies in the South, like, for example, South Africa, like, for example, Brazil, like India, where we are talking, are now a member of the BRICS. BRICS, where you have an alliance with autocrats, with Russia, with Iran, who is a member of BRICS, with China, naturally. So that's the reason, the geopolitical reason why we need to build up a democratic, strong, value-based European family, European Union that is capable to defend itself against all the others. And that can be, at a certain moment, also our American ally, as we see it for the moment, happening under our eyes. when we see how Trump is treating Zelensky, Ukraine. Well, Ukraine is a democracy, a real democracy. And Russia is certainly not a democracy. It has never been, I would say, the last 20 years maybe, a real democracy. And the question is, and that's my third message, are we ready for that, for such a new world order with Europe? We could be ready, and I think that liberals in Europe are at the forefront really to ask, to fight for a more stronger, integrated European Union that can defend itself in this new world order. Because we are not ready for the moment, not fully ready for the moment. What are we missing? First of all, a common defense capability and capacity. That are we missing. Today it's NATO. NATO is an alliance of nations, but that was not the original idea of the NATO. The original idea of NATO in the 50s was to have an organization with two pillars, American troops in Europe, and secondly, a European Defence Union. That were the two pillars of NATO in 49, 50, 51. And the Americans, together with the French, developed that concept of a European Defence Union to give the possibility that Germany could re-enter in the international community. That was the best way to do it after the Second World War. And that idea of a European defence community failed in 1954 in a vote in the National Assembly in France, because the French thought Stalin is dead, so we don't need it anymore, and we have our own atomic bomb, so we can defend ourselves. So that idea failed, and NATO became an alliance, in fact, not of two equal pillars, American troops in Europe and a strong European defense community, but an alliance of individual member states, under the guidance, under the umbrella of the Americans. And so the first thing to do, and what we need to do, certainly we needed already to do it since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, is to establish a European defense community as a pillar of NATO, not independently for NATO, but a strong pillar inside NATO. NATO has to develop itself as a worldwide organization, also with an Asian, Southeast Asian pillar, with Japan, Australia, New Zealand in it, North American pillar and a European pillar. That will be, in fact, the future. And that will give us the opportunity, in fact, to far better use all the money we give to our armies today. You know what we're spending in Europe on armies. And I take, for once, the British again in, because they will come back. So we all know that. Not now, but in 10, 15, 20 years, I see the Brits coming back in the European Union. Today, in the referendum, in every opinion poll, 61% of the British want to return in the European Union. So if we take them all together, Europe, the UK, and actually Ukraine. Ukraine, who is a candidate member state now of the European Union. Well, we spent more than 400 billion euro on military in Europe. 400 billion euro. That is 3 times more as the Russians today. As the Russians today. Because in the past it was 60, 70 billion. Today it's 130, 140, who knows, billion euro that the Russians are spending on military during this war with Ukraine. We are spending 3 times more. I don't think that you have the impression for the moment that the Europeans spend 3 times more on military than the Russians. But we do. We spend more or less 45% on military of the Americans. Well, the Americans are the world champions. Nearly 1 trillion they have as military expenditure. So we spend more or less 40%. We can do what? We can do 10%, maybe 15% with the Europeans together of the operations of the American army. I said it already yesterday during our little dinner. I'm a lawyer. I don't know nothing about figures. Nothing about figures. Nevertheless, I was Minister of Budget at what moment in my life. It was my first post in the government. But I'm always saying, and I said that already yesterday, to be Minister of Budget, you don't need to know anything about figures. The only thing what you need to know is the word no. That's the only thing. Well, but even I, as a lawyer, I know if you spend 40% of the Americans, you can only do 10% or 15% of the operations of the American army. You are 3 to 4 times less effective. And that's normal. We have in Europe 130 weapon systems. The Americans have 25 weapon systems. The Russians also 25. The Chinese also not more than that. We, naturally, more than 130 weapon systems. If we send weapons to Ukraine, they become crazy in Ukraine with all the different types that we are sending them. So the first thing to do is to create a European defense community in Europe that can defend itself, because you never know what is happening at the other side of the Atlantic. If Trump one day said, yeah, it's over with NATO, what are we going to do? So when Europe wants to defend itself in the modern world, we need to do that. The same is economically. Economically, for the moment, yeah, it's an economy, a world economy that is fully concentrated on a number of big tech monopolies in America, to which we send all our data every day for free. So we are making the data, they are making the money. That's a little bit the division of labor for the moment in this world order, in this economic world order. We need to fulfill and, in fact, finish a real single market in Europe. We have a single market. Beer, chocolate, Belgium, so it's good. Champagne, German cars, Italian sports cars. That's all single market. But we have no single market for digital. We have no single market for telecom. We have 100 mobile operators in Europe still. More than 100. So that, and we have 27 regulators. We have not what the Americans have, one regulator, FCC, that's the regulator, Federal Communication Commission, pass. They decide. No, here, you need to go 27 times. If there is a fantastic company in Iceland who want to roll out something in Europe, because they have found a new app on mobile, they have huge difficulties. That happened, for example, with Spotify, who went first of all to America to develop their services, and then came back because there you need one FCC authorization, a deal with 3 big telecom operators, and you go for it. In Europe, 27. In Europe, 100 deals with mobile operators. So what we need to do, and what liberals certainly need to push for, is we need to complete the single market the fastest as possible. Financial services, telecom, digital, and everything what is linked to that. Then we can create big companies coming from Iceland, coming from whatever member state of the European Union, that can compete with Chinese, can compete with the Americans. And not only in digital, but also in the industrial sector, the fastest as possible. And there's a second thing to do. And the third thing to do, we need naturally to make it a real decision-making body, Europe, that can decide. You follow a little bit, I think, this whole idea of the sanction package against Russia. We are now at the 19th, I presume. How many months it will take before the 19th will be adopted? We need to have a European, what I call union, who is capable to act immediately when it is necessary. And unanimity decision-making is not good. It is weakening the sovereignty of countries, not strengthening the sovereignty of countries. What is the sovereignty of countries when Europe cannot decide, for example, on an 18 or a 19 or a 20 sanction package? What is, in fact, the sovereignty of a country when you, in fact, economically are weakened by the absence of a full-fledged digital single market in Europe? So sovereignty doesn't mean, okay, I'm alone, so I'm quiet, nobody's busy with me, they don't see me. That's not sovereignty. Sovereignty in the modern world is that you use Europe as a new instrument to defend your national interest. That is sovereignty, and not putting yourself aside. And I think, Mrs. Leader, I think it would be better that the Conservative Party invite me to their Congress, so that that would be, I think, more productive than to repeat it here in this Congress. But in any, so I wait for an invitation from them. But in any way, that is what we need to tell to the people in Iceland, but not only in Iceland, everywhere in Europe. Everywhere in Europe. But in fact, what we see in the public opinion in Europe is that something is changing. In the past, the European Union, what it was, the European project, the European Union was a technocratic program, in fact. of bureaucrats in Brussels. Well, not so many, but okay, a lot of them, more than 25,000, are working there. And at the same time, of a few political leaders who thought, okay, we go forward with Europe, steel, coal, later on, customs union, then single market, then the euro. So you build it up. But we are today in a situation that it is not longer a project pushed forward by leaders and bureaucrats. It's now a project that is asked and requested by the people. People are asking for European defense to protect ourselves, to have our security. People are asking that we create also big digital European companies who can defend itself, and that they are not Americans or Chinese who will decide what we will see on our timelines of our iPhones. That is what people accept. For the first time in the history of Europe, it are the peoples of Europe, the citizens, who are smart enough to push for it. And that is the reason why extreme right-wing populist parties don't talk any longer about exit from the union, exit from the single market, or exit from the common currency. What did it in the past? Mrs. Le Pen, Brexit. Oh, no, I want to stay. Geert Wilders, you know him, the firebrand of the Dutch politics, exactly the same. So there has changed something inside. By the way, when we are talking about the big issue of migration, it's also an issue that can only be solved on the European level, instead of 27 different policies where one country tries to push those who enter in another country. But because that is what is happening for the moment. And they say, yeah, we push, and the Hungarians say, we push them out, and to Austria. And the Austrians say, no, go to Germany. And Germans say, go to Belgium. The Belgians say, to France. And then, the end were in Britain, naturally. But no, the reality is that Brexit had a common policy on migration. It were Polish people who went to work in the building industry in Britain. And that was a big issue during the Brexit. Now, today, it are Africans and Pakistani who enter in Britain, and they have a totally other problem, a crisis of migration. There was no crisis of migration. There was simply a single labor market in the European Union that was applied. And they created a migration crisis by the Brexit. No, that's not sovereignty, that's stupidity, that calls. And so we have to be aware of it, using these arguments in the upcoming fight that you will have, because don't underestimate it. A number of political forces in Iceland will try to use nativism of the people to say, oh, let's stay out of the world. How you can stay out of the world? In a world that is englobed in an internet, in a world that, if the dreams of Musk become true, will become an interplanetary species in a few decades from now. No, it's the other way around. We need to unify against humanity. In fact, humanity was unified, but 200,000 years ago, somewhere in Africa. Then we were unified. And then we went in all directions, first in Europe, then in America, then in Oceania, then in all parts of the world. And we created different cultures. We created different languages. And we became divided. We became divided because all people in the world, all humans, have in fact the same characteristics, have the same possibilities. They can be hateful, but they can also be beautiful. And they have the same characteristics and the same possibilities. And nevertheless, we are divided as humanity. Nevertheless, we all know that we come from one source 200,000 years ago. So to restore this, to unify against humanity, I think it's absolutely necessary, the fastest as possible, before we become an interplanetary species. Because it would be a disaster to become an interplanetary species and not have solved the reunification of humanity and the fact that we all agree that democracy and liberal democracy is the way to govern modern societies, human society, and not autocracy, as it is happening now for the moment. So maybe we're going to send a letter to Musk that he has to wait a little bit with his starships now, but or to put them on hold. But in any way, I think there is a big task for liberals and liberal Democrats. I know you are doing it very well here in Iceland, but sometimes I'm a little bit anxious for liberal democracy in Europe, in the United States of America. I don't see enough, how to say, resistance by liberals against things that is happening for the moment. And we need to be at the forefront. We need to be at the forefront to defend the First Amendment, but always defend the First Amendment. Not only when it is against your enemies, and then say, yeah, then I defend the First Amendment. And when it is against you, no, then it's no longer the First Amendment. Then it's hate speech, as they call it for the moment. We have to defend a real free economy, as we need to have one, but a real free economy in which everybody can participate, and not only the big tech billionaires as we see them today. We need an economy where also ordinary people can become capitalists. We are not socialists. We don't want to solve the problems in our economy by more government regulation, more bureaucracy. That failed. That failed completely. We are liberals who want to try to new experiments, new experience in economy, where we, in the new labor market that will be born, we create more possibilities for everybody to participate in capital and in labor, in both of them. We see no opposition between both, between labor and capital, as Marxist thing that there exists. And we need to understand, third, as liberals, that by respecting the nation, by respecting subsidiarity, we need to create bigger organizations to defend these ideas on the world level. The world is a planet. Planetarism, that means something. I think that we will only be unified again in humanity the day that we will discover for 100% sure that there will be other intelligent people in the universe. Then we will see, oh, there are others. We need to unify again. We need to go. Yeah, I really think to do so. That is the issue for the moment, because we think we are alone. So we can be busy with our divisions. We can be busy with our difference of opinion. And if we are not, and I think we are not alone. In a universe that counts, I don't know how many billion of planets, in a billion of galaxies, and maybe there is not one universe, maybe there are more than one universe, it will be a miracle if we are alone. And I'm pretty sure that there are other miracles in the world. And so we as liberals have to already prepare for that. We have to have a planetary vision that doesn't make us as people who are not realistic. I think it is unrealistic not to talk about our problems in a planetary setting. We need to take the decisions here, locally, on the level of the nation state, but always in mind that there are principles, value that counts for everybody. We want, as liberals, that also Chinese can really vote. We want, as liberals, that also North Koreans can have personal rights and human rights. We want that women in Iran can do what they want and not what the mullahs are saying them what to do. That is the worldview we have. And therefore, we have to fight. And I'm pretty sure that with your leadership here in Iceland, you will succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this inspiring talk. I can see that you have lost none of your passion. And you took us from Brexit out into space and back again. I also understand that you have a lot of passion for racing cars and red wine. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yes, I'm a winemaker in Italy. I have a big estate there of 1 hectare. And I make 4,000 bottles. And people are always saying, you drink them yourself. I say, no, I don't drink them. You have a little problem when you drink 4,000 bottles a year. Not all, but that's one of my passions. Already 10 years I do that. And secondly, I have also a passion for old cars, race cars, because I think that all modern cars are awful. And the most beautiful cars have been made in the 50s and the 60s. And to race with them on old tracks like Goodwood and Le Mans and Spa-Francorchamps is a fantastic experience. Now, my wife thinks completely different of that.
Yeah, I just hope that you don't mix the red wine and the racing.
No.
Okay, good. Now, when talking about Brexit, what I took from it was that you were saying that the people that wanted UK to stay in the European Union, that they were lukewarm about it. They should have been all in. They were always criticizing the European project at the same time as they were telling people to join it. And I was wondering, what kind of advice can you give us now that we are entering into the debate about accession?
To defend the whole project and the idea of such. It has to be, first of all, an ideological, I would say, a battle in saying we believe in Europe. We think Iceland is part of Europe. We have a heritage with Europe. We are part of the culture of Europe. And we want a strong Europe in this modern world because we don't want that Chinese or Indians or Americans are saying us what to do. And Europe is real sovereignty instead of to be a vassal of whatever other empire. I think so, and that didn't happen in Britain. And secondly, what didn't happen in Britain either was at the moment that they decided to go out, there was a need to negotiate with them a new relationship. And it was easy to see what the new relationship could be. It could be a customs union, single market, whatever. And they were never capable to put together the moderate forces of the Tory party and the Labour party to push for that. And it became a hard Brexit because of the incapacity of the British political system to have moderated outcomes. So Brexit is also a lesson. For example, the political turmoil, for example, in France today and what is happening in the US, that a political system that counts. Not all political systems are equal. We as liberal, I think, need to defend proportional systems as the best way to go forward and not polarized systems, be they presidential or parliamentarian, like in Britain, France, or the US. So that's also, I think, a lesson from Brexit.
So you're talking about ideology and the big ideas. That's what I'm hearing from you, not about practical issues on cost of trade or euro, but about the...
And I think that one of the crises of liberal democracy today is exactly the lack of ideology. You know, ideologies has been killed after 1989 by a number of people, mostly social democrats, who said there is no longer a difference between left and right. There is no longer... everything is about... social democrats started to defend flexibility, liberalization, and we as liberals, we found that very much fantastic, that social democrats started to repeat all proposals. But the problem, what we didn't see at that moment, that in fact they betrayed their people, their workers. And these workers and these people went all to extreme right-wing and populist parties. So the crisis of today in liberal democracy and the rise of populism is also a consequence of the loss of ideology in our political disputes and our political battles. We need ideology, you need vision, because only ideology and vision can create hope and direction for the people. The people don't only expect from a politician and a political party that they solve a practical problem, building a road, building a bridge, being active when there is a big problem in a country. They want also that a politician, a political leader, and a political party show a direction for the future. And that is totally missing today in many liberal democratic countries. And the consequence of it is that in the center of the political landscape, there is no oxygen anymore. And it fills itself with all types of discontent, declinism, and so on. And that is the basis for populism. So the return of ideology, in my opinion, and certainly of liberal ideology, well-defined, better explained than in the past, has to be the counter-narrative for the populism of today.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to import you for the Conservative Party as soon as possible. But I want to turn back to Europe and to Iceland. You were Prime Minister of Belgium for 9 years. And Belgium, of course, a relatively small country in Europe, but much bigger than Iceland. So we often get the question here in the debate, how can a small state like Iceland have any influence on the European states? What will happen to our sovereignty, our voice? Won't it be drowned out?
No, it's on the contrary, automatically by entering the European Union, you will be represented Parliament in a commission, who is the government, in fact, of the European Union, and every country has a commissioner, and is equal. There is one German commissioner. Well, there will be one Icelandic commissioner. And third, so you will shape together with all these other representatives the type of legislation, the legislation that will be applicable to you. It's by being around the table that you will shape. Today, to be, for example, in the single market, but not to be around the table where the regulations are made, that is mainly, I think, a loss of sovereignty. You have to be around the table where these regulations are made. That is sovereignty. And not say, oh, I stay out because I want to be sovereign, when these rules are applied on you as it is happening. And that was the big mistake, I think, in Britain. They said, okay, we want to take back control, while... in fact, the best solution was to be in the single market. Who defended the single market the most in British politics? Who was it? Margaret Thatcher defended the single market the most as possible. And she thought a single market, big single market, and then the Eurotunnel, that will be a game changer for Britain. And that was the right view. Today, this Brexit crisis is going on. It's not finished. There are everyday problems. There are everyday new regulations. So what we see is more red tape in the UK now than before they were taking back control. And more problems for every industry that they have. And a lack of the right migration, I would say. There is migration, but not the one that was stopped because of Brexit, and that they absolutely need. This hospitality sector, for example, has huge problems. Not to talk about even the financial sector, who has a number of them, actors of them, went to the continent. So again, I think that's a very important thing to say. Your sovereignty, you defend them around the negotiation table, not to be absent of the negotiation table. Because if you're absent of the negotiation table, you will be on the menu. That's politics.
And one final question. I was allowed 3 and we are up to 5, so I'm going to shoot anyway. We also hear this is not a good time to apply for EU membership, and what kind of advice do you have to us for accession negotiations?
I think it's absolutely opposite. Everybody can see what is happening in the world. A country, for example, that you know very well, I think, the Danish, were always very frugal. Today they are at the forefront to ask for more budget, more this, more that of the European Union. So if you look really to the world and what could be the world order of tomorrow, it's obvious that we need to strengthen European sovereignty and at the same time national sovereignty inside this European Union.
Wonderful. I so look forward to our 3-hour drive back to the airport, where we can discuss things more. Thank you for coming. Let's give